What's going on, YouTube? It's your boy Swab, aka Jose, aka whatever fuck you want. I haven't made videos in a long time, but I'm here to talk about switching from full frame Nikon to crop censored Sony, and it's kind of weird because some people might think of it as a downgrade, and I definitely don't think it's a downgrade. So let's get into it. All right, guys. So let's see. We got to start at the beginning. Years ago, many years ago, I bought a Canon T3i. That's a crop sensor camera that was very, very popular for YouTubers back in the day because it had a flip out screen, and there weren't too many cameras doing that. That camera was the shit. I mean, that was one of the first 1080p cameras that you can buy at a good price. You put a 50mm 1.8 on that bad boy, or a 24mm 2.8 on that bad boy, and you were set. So I used to use that camera for street photography. I'd go to events. Sometimes I'd do some video. I bought the camera for video because back in those days I was trying to do a YouTube thing with sneakers and such, and that didn't work out. I didn't really focus much on it, but I got really into photo. So with that being said, for a couple years I kept using that. I ended up doing events, portrait shoots. I've done 2 weddings with that camera, and it got to the point where I figured everything about the camera. I mean, I figured out every single thing there is to figure out about that camera. I pretty much can say that I mastered that camera. So later on I decided, you know, it's time to upgrade. It's time to step it up to the next level. So I was looking into my full frame options. While I was looking into my full frame options, I came across Nikon, which, you know, most people, you know, have crop sensor Canon, they go full frame Canon, or the same thing with Nikon. If you started with a Nikon D5300 or something like that, you might go full frame Nikon because you already know what you're doing with the system or whatever. So I went the opposite way. I went Nikon, mostly because of their lens support. Nikon lens support, you can't even touch it. I mean, you can use lenses from 1968 or whatever the fuck, and they still work on your Nikon F bodies now. That is until the mirrorless cameras came out. Then they finally switched them out. Every camera has switched their mount except for Nikon. So I really love that. I noticed that it was pretty cool to go out there and find lenses that would fit, you know, vintage lenses for like 10 bucks, 20 bucks online that fit your Nikon camera, and you can just do some amazing stuff with that. So that's why I got into the Nikon game. They're Nikons, I feel like they just produce really good photos. If you're photographing people, the photos are just really nice. So I loved the Nikon D750. That was my baby. And even when I got the camera, I bought it used. I paid like $1,400 for that. And even buying it used, I want to say it was a few years old at that point. I kept doing what I could do with that camera. Eventually my kit, right before I got rid of it recently, was a Nikon 85mm 1.8. Best lens, well, one of the best lenses I've ever used on a camera. That lens is so good, and I would still use it now if I could, but there's just no point in doing that. Even adapting is just no point for that. 50mm 1.8, easiest lens to get your hand on when you start with any company, with any camera company, and that really got me through for video. And then I used a 28mm 1.8, and that was the G series. Yeah, so that was my wide lens. Even though I've had wider, I had 24mm, but they were never 1.8. On a full frame, 1.8 is 1.8, so it's nice. So those were my 3 lenses. I like primes. I'm not really a zoom person. I did what I could with those lenses. I did a couple, you know, corporate events, shoots. It worked for me. It was good. That paired with my Flashpoint or Godox flashes always did the job for me. So I started looking into Sony because last year they released this A6400, which I'm using to film right now. They released the A6100, which is the cheaper version, and then they released a 6600, which is a much nicer version with a bigger battery, a couple extra features, nothing too crazy. Here's the thing about those cameras. They put an autofocus system that's only on the A9, on the Sony A9, and I'm pretty sure they're putting it now on the Sony A7S III, which is crazy. This autofocus system is so nuts. I mean, I can literally tap anything on the screen and it will focus it. It's real-time focusing. You might want to do the research on this if you don't know about it already, because I know there's Canon dual pixel and all this crap, but this autofocus is amazing. It is ridiculous. My God. So I decided to give this a try because I'm thinking, okay, if I sell my Nikon system, and at the moment, you know, the world's going through COVID and all this crap, there's nothing really going on, it's a good time to switch systems because you just never know. So I decided to give it a try. I get a Sony A6400. It works. It's amazing. The battery sucks, but it's amazing. Then I noticed that Sigma has these 3 lenses for Sony APS-C and for Canon APS-C. We got the Sigma 16mm 1.4, which is what I'm filming on right now. That is equivalent to a 24mm that's a 24mm f2 on a full frame body, which is amazing. They also have a 30mm 1.4, which I have as well, which equals to about 50mm f2. Amazing. And then they have a 56mm f1.4, which is about close to an 85mm f2 on full frame. Those are my focal lengths. That's what I mess with. That's what I need. I got the wide, I got the middle, and I got my telephoto for those portraits. That's all I need. And all of these lenses are so sharp and amazing. I mean, even when I was shooting full frame and I had a f1.8, I was still shooting it at f2 just because I wanted it to be sharper, because you know that f1.8, it's not the sharpest point of the lens. It's not the sweet spot. Y'all can look into that as well if you don't really know what I'm talking about, but most lenses have a sweet spot, and it's usually not wide open at f1.4 or f1.8. It's usually a stop up or a couple stops up. These Sigma lenses are super sharp at f1.4, and when I tell you, I fell in love with these lenses. So I have 2 out of 4. I have 2 out of 3 lenses. I'm only missing the 56mm f1.4, which is going to be my main portrait lens. I can't wait to order that lens, and that thing is so tiny. Side note, before I got the Sony, I actually did have another camera. I had a Fujifilm X-T20. That's the camera I bought for traveling because I've been doing more traveling in the last 3 years. That camera is so tiny, and it's very, very similar to these A6000 series cameras from Sony. So the X-T20 was great, but I can never rely on it. And I have a feeling that if I would have went with an X-T2 or X-T3 or X-T4, it was going to be the same scenario where I just wasn't going to feel comfortable. And even with the Sony, I'm still trying to get to that real comfort level of just knowing that everything's going to work just fine. And I think a lot of it has to do with the size of the camera. When I feel like the camera is super tiny, it just gives me this weird toy feeling, and I don't like it. With that X-T20, I did take it on an event last year. I was doing a Sweet 16 photo shoot. I was at the event. Canon's going off. I got flashes everywhere set up. Everything's going perfect. The shoot is going amazingly. I decided to bring out the Fujifilm X-T20, get some shots with it, you know, so I can compare. I put a flash on it, and it just was not giving me what I wanted. I mean, it wasn't working. And I love Fuji. I don't want you to get the wrong idea. I love Fujifilm. I mean, you can call me Omar Gonzalez out here. You know what I'm saying? Fujifilm colors, amazing. The cameras are amazing. They just weren't doing it for me. They weren't giving me what I wanted. I decided to let go of the Fujifilm, and I kept using the Nikon because I decided, you know, I'm not going to travel all the time. I need to really focus my money into the camera that I'm using for work. Now, somehow I ended up with the Sony. and I'm loving it. The autofocus is amazing. I plan to make a video in the future talking about the autofocus, talking about how I feel about it for video, how I feel about it for photo. I need to really make a video breaking down how I feel about this camera after using it and putting it in through its paces, because I haven't really used it too much. I've used this maybe on 2 very short shoots, and they were just for fun. It was nothing paid, but I do plan on using it for some video projects in the future. And this is the first YouTube video I'm making with this camera, and it's mostly just to test this out. So I'm gonna let you guys go. I will drop another video soon sharing my thoughts. I definitely recommend a D750 for anybody, just not for video. You only get 1080p, and I doubt you can do 60 frames on that, so no slow-mo. And as soon as you record video, if you move too close to the subject or anything, they're out of focus. The autofocus does not exist in video for those old DSLRs, but on this camera it does. So I'm gonna leave it at that. I hope you guys have a good one. Thank you for watching. Peace.